when I sit here and look around this room and think about the fact that everything in this room was once just somebody's idea, it kind of blows my mind. Like, who invented cushions? Who invented paper? Who invented carpet? And who invented the glue that I could stick this carpet to the wall with? Like, who did that? How? And why? It's absolutely fascinating. In this way, designers and inventors are change agents for society, but we're all change agents. We all design our own little spaces that we live in, and we all basically eat, pray, love design. We all have an opinion on it, when something's good, when something's bad, when something works, when something doesn't. From like the roadworks outside my house at the moment, which are causing absolute chaos. Somebody wrapped themselves around a lamppost. You kind of go like, wow, I don't think anybody thought these traffic lights through. Yeah, it's just pretty amazing. So, what makes good design? A huge question. It's studied a lot. Design theory, design science, design principles. There's a whole, you can Google all of them. I've put links on them, which will be on this at the bottom of this video. Links to all the things I've looked up. Design theory. What makes for good design? Basically, you want what's known as the gulf of execution, which is the ideas that the person had and somebody who didn't have the idea, who kind of wants to use the thing and has various expectations of whatever artifact that the person who had the idea has created. You want that gulf to be very small. Otherwise, you're looking at dissatisfied customers and that kind of thing. So I like to think of design, spent a lot of time thinking about design as part of my PhD thesis in terms of function, behaviour, structure. So you have an artifact and basically what's its purpose, what's its function, how does it behave, and how is it structured, how is it made? Because quite often your structure, whatever materials you've used, it might behave quite differently to the original idea of what the purpose is. But you can flip these things around. So sometimes, say for example, you want to design something very classic and very easy to use. You would think about, does form follow function? I have a fantastic coffee machine. It's a Lapavoni, and that is definitely very simply made, very beautiful. You pull the handle down, it's quite obvious, form follows function. It's something that occurs in nature quite often. We have lots of different patterns in nature that look beautiful. The golden ratio, all of Apple's products, the iPod was the golden ratio, Stradivarius, golden ratio, beautiful, beautiful things, because beautiful things that are aesthetically pleasing do light up a centre in our brain and give us a little bit of a rush. That's why when people own nice things, it kind of makes you feel better, which is why marketing can be quite successful, because it kind of taps on that feeling that, ooh, if you own this, you'll get that one for the feeling that you get. It's a fascinating area. Art in itself, it pleases us. Actually, it's been shown in research that if you look at a picture rather than a photograph, the picture will please you more because it's more open to interpretation and feeling, and we bring a lot of stuff to it. And it's the same with lots of other artifacts. There's no function in structure principle of design, whereby if you don't know what something does and you just look at its structure, if you have no idea, you can pick it up and use it for a totally different purpose. This is how lots of design discoveries have been made. So SMS texting was originally the engineers at Nokia created it so that they could text each other, go, did you get the call, did it work, did this, communicate with each other. It turns out it's a form of communication all in itself. The post-it note was invented in a glue factory. They were trying out different types of glue. Someone toddled up one day and went, this is fantastic, stick this everywhere. It's just a question of seeing things differently. So when you're designing, you sometimes take away the constraints, certain constraints of, if it fits in this environment, will it fit in a different environment? People recommend it quite often when you're creating something like even a story, or what happened if I took this thriller and put it in Jane Austen? You get Pride and Prejudice and zombies. How exciting. So So there are lots of ways to design stuff. When you're looking at, yeah, this is where it all goes to pieces part way through. We have, let me look at my notes, we have styles and standards, we have types and schemas, there are lots of different rules. We have Gestaltian design, whereby you group similar things together, and things that are close to each other, have close proximity, they give the impression that they're together. We particularly do that on websites with menus, so you group your main menu here, your secondary menu goes under one heading, that kind of thing. We've all seen it. What else is there? I talked about managing expectations, and you need to give good feedback. So when somebody does something, you want to feed it back in a way that gives them what is known as, in psychology, the internal locus of control or external locus of control. So it feels like the person has like control over what's going on, and they're not like, oh, I've broken it, or I don't know what, I didn't expect it to do that. You also have transference, where you take your knowledge of one artifact and you transfer it to another one. There are 1,000 different rules people talk about, and there are some rules that are made up, like for example colour. There are no there's no theory of colour. I looked and looked and looked and looked and looked. What there is different people's ideas. So we do like standards, standard colour. We like to recognise things. So we do like branding. So you like to recognise a great brand, like Heinz ketchup is red, always red. And we recognise that, and we trust it, and that's what we want to use. However, we also like gimmicks. So when Heinz ketchup came out in green a few years ago, everyone was super excited about that and bought that because we do like a gimmick. Basically, we're a little bit lazy. No, we're not lazy. We have cognitive overload, so we choose things that are more familiar. I talked about that in the social animal series of blogs, and we just like to recognise things. We buy the same toothpaste. Quite often we buy the same ketchup. We all have preferences, and colour makes that easy for us. You know, normally you'll get a focus group when you design something, and you'll say this suits this. You know, you'll ask people and get their opinion. You'll ask your target audience when you're designing something where colour is. You used to have a symbolic meaning. I've been getting into a bit of tarot actually, and all of these cards have symbolic meanings that are kind of lost, you know. And in art, especially what's called Vermeer, he had lots of paintings with lots of symbols in. The biblical paintings all do, like Jerome always has does he always have a lion? Somebody else has a skull. Yeah, Agatha has breasts floating in the air, St. Agatha. And it was stuff that people used to know, but it's kind of gotten lost over the ages. So, like hieroglyphics, they were fabulous communication symbols that embodied religion and magic and all sorts, but it wasn't very practical because design is a form of communication, and hieroglyphics, even though they were beautifully designed, they weren't for everybody to communicate with. So they for the merchants who wanted to write and record things quickly made a simpler version of the hieroglyphs until we eventually got onto the cursive script that we use everywhere nowadays. And it took a long time before people cracked the hieroglyphs on the Rosetta Stone to relearn once more what was once common parlance, but actually only for a few people. So there we go. That's my take on design. A bit rambly as per usual, but who cares? Design is fascinating, and basically what we want to do is make the world a better place by designing things that will be like hieroglyphics, work for everybody, but as soon as you got on to communicating quickly and effectively and efficiently, a bit like any design product, you get on to something less complex. And that's the coming thing. We're now aiming at simplexity for the Internet of Things as we get all more internet savvy, and we put things on the internet, artifacts on the internet, not just data. As we get our artifacts speaking to each other and exchanging protocols and stuff, we want to make sure that as a human we can look at whatever artifacts online and know how to use it simply. It might do a lot of complex things, but you want it to be simple, hence simplexity. So that is the little bit of futurology there for you. Simplexity online. That's what we want to do. Design for everybody. Keep it simple. Keep it smart. And I guess keep it better. We're designing just to make the world easier for us all to live in, not just some of us.